إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار وبعد. We began last week, walillahil hamd, beginning from the start of this work, اتحاف القاري بتعليقات على شرح السنة للإمام أبي محمد الحسن بن علي بن خلف البربهاري رحمه الله تعالى. This great work in explanation of the creed of the Salaf and the Aqeedah of the Salaf by Abu Muhammad al-Barbaharee rahimahullah ta'ala, who died in the year 329 after the Hijrah. We embarked last week upon the Muqaddimah or the Muqaddimatul Mu'alliq al-Kitab Fadilatul Sheikh Salih al-Fawzaan, or the introduction of the Mu'alliq, meaning the one who has explained or annotated this book, who has written, who has compiled and has delivered durus. In fact, this work being compiled from a series of durus of the Sheikh in explanation of the book Sharhus sunnah of Imam al-Barbaharee rahimahullah. We reached, as far as I'm aware, page 41 in volume 1. Now, page 41 of volume 1, where the Sheikh explains what ma'na sharh, or the meaning of the term sharh, bayan, that the meaning of the term sharh or explanation here means the clarification. ليس معناه أنه يشرح كتاب معينا, and the meaning here is not that the Sheikh, meaning Imam al-Barbaharee rahimahullah, that he is about to explain a particular book. Rather, as he mentions, أو يفسر كتاب معينا, and he is not also about to explain a particular or to give commentary to a particular book. إنما معناه أنه يوضح طريقة السنة. Rather, the meaning here of the term sharh is that he is going to make clear the path of the sunnah. هذا معنى شرح السنة, and this is the meaning of the term Sharhus sunnah, or the explanation of the sunnah. He mentions there, and this is where we begin today, he mentions كان الأوائل يسمون كتب العقيدة بالسنة مثل هذا الكتاب. He mentions that the early scholars, they used to entitle their books of Aqeedah with the term as-sunnah. So though the book is termed, even though the book, its name is as-sunnah, the subject matter is Aqeedah, is the creed. مثل هذا الكتاب, just as this book Sharhus sunnah that is in front of you, my brothers and sisters, is the book called Sharhus sunnah, meaning explanation of the sunnah, but in reality it is a book of creed or Aqeedah. مثل السنة للأحمد للإمام أحمد, such as the book also as-sunnah of Imam Ahmad, which is of course translated by our brother Abu Iyad Amjad Rafiq Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, which he translated the book Usul Sunnah of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. It is entitled Foundations of the Sunnah, available from the bookstore. But the title of the book, As-Sunnah, meaning again Aqeedah. وَالسُّنَّةِ لِإِبْنِهِ Abdullah, and likewise the book As-Sunnah, which is called As-Sunnah, of the son of Imam Ahmad, whose name was Abdullah. And likewise As-Sunnah of Al-Athram. And Al-Athram, again, one of the students of Imam Ahmad, he has a book called As-Sunnah, and this is a book of Aqeedah, a book of belief, a book of creed. And likewise he mentions وَالشَّرْحِ أصول اعتقاد أهل السنة والجماعة للالكائي, and likewise شرح أصول اعتقاد أهل السنة والجماعة, which translates as the explanation of the foundations of creed of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, of the great Imam al-Lalikai. He mentions كذلك يسمونها الإيمان, and likewise they used to entitle their books with the term al-Iman. فَيُودَعُ فِي بَعْدِ الْكُتُبِ كِتَابًا يُسَمَّى كِتَابُ الْإِيمَانِ. He mentions that so some books would have chapters entitled Kitabul Iman. That they would have chapters entitled Kitabul Iman. كما هو موجود في صحيح البخاري ومسلم. Such as that which is present in Sahih al-Bukhari and Muslim. Meaning that if you go to Sahih al-Bukhari and Muslim, which is a good homework for you, inshallah, for those of you who go home and you have a copy of Sahih al-Bukhari, just flick through the earlier volumes of Bukhari, volume 1, and you should find in there Kitabul Iman. So this is what he's saying, that they have in their works that they have chapters called Kitabul Iman, and likewise Sahih Muslim. So this is a good piece of homework for you, and also something that will also encourage you to seek knowledge, my brothers and sisters. Go home, look in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, even in the English translation, and you'll find a chapter heading Kitabul Iman. He mentions likewise, and also actually if you go to Abu Dawud and other books like that, you'll also find Kitabul Sunnah, like in the Sunnah of Abu Dawud, and likewise Imam Tirmidhi, that they have Kitabul Sunnah. And if you go through the chapter, you'll see that the chapter is in reality, the chapter refers to the Aqeedah and to the manhaj of Ahlul Sunnah. So then he mentions كما هو موجود في صحيح البخاري ومسلم ويعقدون كتابا ويسمونها كتاب الإيمان. So he mentions, so they would include into their books chapters entitled Kitabul Iman. ويريدون فيه ما يختص بالعقيدة. And they intended by that which is specifically related to the matters of Aqeedah. And then he mentions من الإيمان بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر والقدر خيره وشره فيسمونها الإيمان. So he mentions that these chapter headings in the books, such as Bukhari and Muslim and other than them, that what they intend by that is particular affairs related to the Aqeedah. So he would mention من الإيمان بالله, such as belief in Allah and His angels and His books and the messengers and the last day, and the belief in the pre-decree, its good and its evil, and that they would entitle them with the term Al-Iman, chapter headings and books that were called Iman. And also, of course, the scholars themselves have books as Kitabul Iman, such as Kitabul Iman of Ibn Manda and other than them. Likewise, he mentions وَقَدْ يَسُمُّونَهَا or يُسَمُّونَهَا الشَّرِيعَةِ, that they would also entitle them with the titles such as الشَّرِيعَةِ كَكِتَابِ الشَّرِيعَةِ لِلْإِمَامِ الْآجُرِّ الشَّافِعِي رحمه الله تعالى. So they would also, books of Aqeedah of the early Salaf, that they would entitle them. So far we have As-Sunnah, Al-Iman, and also now Al-Sharia, such as, for example, Al-Sharia of Imam Al-Ajurri Al-Shafi'i rahimahullah. وَقَدْ يَسَمُّونَهَا التَّوْحِيد. They will also call these books of Aqeedah and give them the title At-Tawheed. مثل كتاب التوحيد لابن خزيمة, and such as, for example, Kitab al-Tawheed of Ibn Khuzaymah, وكتب التوحيد المعروفة, and likewise the rest of the books of Tawheed that are well known. وتسمى العقيدة, and likewise some books were actually entitled Aqeedah, وهو ما يعتقده القلب ويدين به ويجزم به. He mentions, and likewise they will be called Aqeedah. And the Aqeedah is that which is the firm belief of the heart, and that which is firmly established in the heart, by way of which one practices his religion or establishes his religion, and he is obligated with. So these are all of the names, or some of the names that the Salaf used to entitle their books, and all of these books are referring to the Aqeedah. And you can see here, my brothers and sisters, that the term Sunnah, the term Al-Aqeedah, the term Al-Sharia, the term At-Tawheed, the term Aqeedah, Kitab al-Tawheed, and these are just titles of the books that the Salaf used to entitle their books with, and all of them are referring to the one and the same thing, and that is the Aqeedah, as the Sheikh mentions here, وَهَذِهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ كُلُّهَا لَاخْتِلَافَ بَيْنَهَا. He mentions, and all of these names, all of them, there is no differing with regard to them. فَهِيَ أَسْمَاءٌ مُتَعَدِّدَةٌ لِشَيْءٍ وَاحِدٍ. And these are all different names or numerous names for the same thing. فَهَذِهِ مِنَ الْمُتَرَادِفَاتِ. And all of these refer back to the same issue, to the same affair. So they are mutaradifat, meaning that they refer back to the same issue, and that is the Aqeedah. وَلَا مُشَاهَةَ فِي الْأَسْمَاءِ. And he mentions that there is no contention in these names. إِذَا أَلِمَ الْمُرَادِ فَلَيْسَ هَذَا مِنَ الْإِخْتِلَافِ. If the murad is known, meaning that if one knows the murad or the intent, then there is no ikhtilaf, there is no differing. وَإِنَّمَا هَذَا مِنَ الْإِسْتِلَاحِ. Rather, this is just terminologies that are being used, different terminologies, all referring back to the same thing. وَكُلُّ إِسْتِلَاحٍ لَهُ وَجْهٍ. And every istilah and every term has an aspect for its usage, has an aspect or an intent for its usage. And he mentions فَلَا إِخْتِلَافَ بَيْنَهُمْ فِي ذَلِكَ. And there is no ikhtilaf between them, meaning between the scholars, in that regard. And then he mentions وَإِنْ اِخْتَلِفَتِ الْأَلْفَاظ وَالْمَعْنَى وَاحِدٌ. And even if the words themselves they differ, the ma'na is one and the same. The meaning is one and the same. So the words may differ, but the meaning remains the same. All of these books referring back to what? Referring back to the Aqeedah. أَمَّا مَنْ يُنْكِرُ هَذَا وَيَقُولُ. As for the one who denies all of this and says, الْعَقِيدَةُ وَالتَّوْحِيدُ إِسْتِلَاحٌ لَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ الدَّلِيلُ. And if a person was to turn around and say that the words Aqeedah and Tawheed are terminologies that do not have for them any proof, meaning from the book and the Sunnah. وَلَيْسَ هُوَ مَوْجُودًا فِي الْقُرْآنِ وَلَا فِي السُّنَّةِ. And these are terms that are not found in the Quran and not found in the Sunnah. فَهَذَا تَشْكِيكٌ. And these are doubts that they throw. يُرِيدُونَ بِهِ أَنْ يَجْتَثُّ هَذِهِ الْعَقِيدَةِ. And they intend by this type of language and these doubts, they intend by it eradication of the Aqeedah. فَجَاءُوا بِهَذَا الْكَلَامِ. So then they turn up and they come with this speech. مِنْ أَجْلِ أَنْ لَا يُمَيِّزَ بَيْنَ الْفِرَقِ الضَّالَةِ وَالْفِرْقَةِ الْمُسْتَقِيمَةِ. And they come with these terminologies and they come with this speech so that they do not want to see any distinction. And the intent of them is that they do not want any tamyiz or any distinction between the people or between the sects of misguidance and the sect that is upon the straight path. وَهَذَا هُوَ الَّذِي غَاضَهُمْ. And this is what enrages them. And this is what angers them. What angers them? The fact that Ahlus Sunnah, that they come with the Aqeedah to distinguish between truth and falsehood. So these people don't want the distinction between truth and falsehood in the Aqeedah, because they do not distinguish and they do not want to see a distinction between the sects of misguidance and the sect that is upon the straight path. And this enrages them, the fact that we want this distinction. وَمِنْ أَجْلِ أَنْ لَا يُرَدَّ عَلَى أَهْلِ الْبَاطِلِ هَذَا قَصْدُ الْمُتَعَلِّمِينَ مِنْهُمْ. And he mentions, that that these individuals that they do not wish to see any refutation, and they do not refute the people of falsehood. Rather, هذا قصد المتعلمين منهم. And this is the intent, that they do not refute the people of falsehood, and this is the intent of the teachers and the educators from amongst them, those who educate their masses. أما الهمج والرعاء الذين يأخذون من المزابل الأفكار فهم يرددون هذه الأقوال كما في بعض الصحف وبعد ما يسمونها المؤلفات. And he mentions that as for the al-hamaj والرعاء, that as for the riffraff and the rabble, الذين يأخذون, those who take من المزابل الأفكار, those who take from the cesspits of thinking and from the lowly thinking, فهم يرددون هذه الأقوال, they just merely echo this speech from their teachers, as you find in some of the writings that are found in the newspapers, and that which is sometimes referred to, as he's mentioned, that sometimes the people refer to it as the writings. That the writings that the people write, meaning that those people who write down their afkar, that they write down their thoughts and their ideas and their ideologies, and that which they place in the newspapers and in their articles of the newspapers, that these individuals are just echoing what they learn from their teachers. So then he mentions فَلَا يَجُوزُ الْإِلْتِفَاتُ إِلَى هَذِهِ التَّشْكِيكَاتِ وَهَذِهِ الْأُمُورِ. He mentions, so it is not permissible to look towards or to pay attention to these doubts and to these affairs. وَهَذَا شَيْءٌ دَرَجَتْ عَلَيْهِ الْأُمَّةِ وَاحْتَمُّوا بِهِ وَتَمْيِيزًا بَيْنَ الْحَقِّ وَالْبَاطِلِ. And this is something that the ummah was accustomed to and would give importance to, distinguishing between haqq and batil, وَبَيْنَ الْهُدَى وَالضَّلَالِ, and between guidance and misguidance. وَلَكِنَّ أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ قَصْدٌ فِي هَذَا. As for these people, then they have an intent with regard to this affair. هُمْ يُرِيدُونَ أَنْ يَدْمِجُوا النَّاسِ. That these people, they intend to blend the people together, so that there's no difference between truth and falsehood. وَلَا يَكُونَ هُنَاكَ فَارِقٌ بَيْنَ الْمُلْحِدِ وَالزِّنْدِيقِ وَمُسْتَقِيمٍ وَمُبْتَدِعٍ. So much so, he mentions that these people, they desire to blend all of the people together into one melting pot, so that there is no longer a difference between the mulhid, a person who is an atheist or a godless person, and a zindiq, a heretic, or between a mustaqim, a person who is upright upon the deen of Allah, and an innovator. وَإِنَّمَا يَبْقَوْنَ تَحْتَ مَذِلَّةِ إِسْمِ الْإِسْلَامِ. Rather, they are all, as far as they are concerned, they are all under the banner or under the shade of Islam, under the shade of just the name of Al-Islam. لأجل توحد المسلمين بزعمهم, for the purpose of uniting the Muslims, as they claim. So here, the sheikh is making the point that those people who criticize those who study the Aqeedah, and they refer to the books of Aqeedah, that they criticize it because they do not want to see a difference between the people of truth and the people of falsehood. That they do not want to see a distinction between the people of desires and the people who follow the truth. They do not want to, they would just want the people, all of them, to blend together, as they claim, so that they may unite the people. And what divides the people? The discussion around the topic of Tawheed and Aqeedah. Once we start talking about Tawheed and Aqeedah, they start getting upset and becoming nervous and agitated at the fact that we are talking about their Aqeedah, because as far as they're concerned, that so long as a person comes under the banner of Islam, then there is no need to discuss any other affairs. فَنَقُولْ لَهُمْ, Sheikh al-Fawzan mentions, so we say to them, الْمُسْلِمُونَ لَا يَتَوَحَّدُونَ إِلَّا عَلَى عَقِيدَةٍ صَحِيحَةٍ. That we say to them that the Muslims will never be united and will never be gathered together except upon the sound Aqeedah. العقيدة التي جمعت الصحابة وكانوا متفرقين. The Aqeedah that united the Sahaba together when they were before that متفرقين, that they were divided. And then he mentions كما قال تعالى, just as Allah has mentioned, واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم. That Allah mentions, and remember the bounty of Allah upon you when you were enemies one to another. فألف بين قلوبكم. And then Allah brought your hearts together. Surah Ali Imran, ayah 103. ما الذي جمع بين الصحابة من الفرقة وتناهر إلا هذه العقيدة التي هي معنى لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. So he mentions, what was it that gathered the Sahaba together when they were before that? من الفرقة and tanahur, that they were upon division and separation and being scattered, except for this Aqeedah. This Aqeedah, that is the meaning of the term or of the saying of Allah, or of the saying of the Muslims, La ilaha illallah, that there is nothing which has a right to be worshipped except for Allah, and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. And then he mentions, فَلَا يَجْمَعُ النَّاسِ إِلَّا الْعَقِيدَةُ الصَّحِيحَةُ, and nothing gathers the people together except for the sound aqeedah. وَأَمَّا أن يكونوا مختلفين في اعتقادهم فلن يجتمعوا أبدا. And as for the people, as for those individuals who are mukhtalifin, that they are divided in their aqeedah and they are divided in their beliefs, then they will never be united ever. That they will never be able to unite them ever. So long as their aqeedah is divided, they will never be united. And then he mentions, أما الاختلاف في المسائل الفقهية الاجتهادية. As for differing in the affairs of fiqh, there are affairs of the ijtihad, meaning these are issues of fiqh in which the scholars have made ijtihad, that they have strived to come to the truth. التي يحتملها الدليل فهذا لا يؤثر. He mentions those affairs of ijtihad where there is a possibility of understanding the evidences of the book and the sunnah from one aspect or from another aspect, meaning that they have ihtimal. يحتملها الدليل, that the dalil or the evidence gives rise to variant understandings, then this does not harm. ولا يحدث فرقة ولا عداوة. And this does not bring about division nor enmity. لأن هذا اجتهاد سائغ. Because this type of ijtihad, this type of striving that the scholars they make, ijtihad here meaning that the scholars that they strive to reach the truth, and in the affairs of fiqh, not in the affairs of the foundations, but in the affairs of fiqh from the branches of the religion, that this ijtihad is sa'igh, meaning that this ijtihad is tolerated. لكن الاختلاف في العقيدة غير سائغ. As for ikhtilaf and differing in the aqeedah, then this is not tolerated. It is not tolerated. ولا يجتمع عليه المختلفون أبدا. And the people who differ in this affair, and they are the people who differ in the affair of the aqeedah, then they will never be united whilst they are differing in the aqeedah. لا يجتمع المختلفون في العقيدة مهما هاول من هاول. He mentions that those who differ in the aqeedah will never be united, no matter how much an individual strives and tries to unite them, they will never be united. لأنه يريد, because this person, he wishes أن يجمع بين المتضادات, that he wishes to gather between opposites. ولا يمكن الجمع بين المتضادات والمتناقضات. And then you will never be able to unite and bring together opposing and contradictory affairs. In that which is mutanaqid, or the mutanaqidat, those affairs that are opposites and they are contradictory, then you will never be able to unite them together. So when the people differ in their aqeedah, then in essence what we're trying to do when we try to bring together the people who differ in the aqeedah, and they differ in these fundamentals of the religion, then trying to unite them is trying to unite opposites, and opposites will never be able to be united. So then he mentions, فَإِذَا كَانُوا يُرِيدُونَ وَحْدَةَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ فَعَلَيْهِمْ أَنْ يُصَحِّحُوا الْعَقِيدَةَ أَوَّلًا. That he mentions, so if they desire the wahdatul muslimin, wish to unite the Muslims together, then upon them is to first and foremost to correct their aqeedah and to make the aqeedah sound and sahih. العقيدة التي كان الرسل من الأولهم إلى آخرهم يهتمون بها. This aqeedah the Aqeedah that the Rasul, that the messengers, from the first of them all the way through to the last of them, that they gave concern and attention to. وَيَبْدَؤُونَ بِهَا, and they used to begin with the Aqeedah, the messengers, the first of them till the last of them. That when they used to call their people, they used to call يَبْدَؤُونَ بِهَا, that they used to begin with the Aqeedah. عَلَيْهِمْ أَنْ يُوَحِّدُوهَا أَوَّلًا. So upon those people in our times who wish to gather the people together, then binding upon them and obligatory upon them is to unite, and yuwahiduha awwalan, is to unite their aqeedah first and foremost. فَإِذَا وَحَّدُوا الْعَقِيدَةَ اتَّحَدَتِ الْأُمَّةِ. If the aqeedah is united, meaning that if the aqeedah is one aqeedah of all of the Muslims, then the ummah is united. هَذَا إِنْ كَانُوا جَادِّينَ وَالصَّادِقِينَ فِي دَعْوَتِهِمْ. And this is only if these individuals, only if they are serious and they are truthful in that which they claim, that they wish to unite the Muslims. If they are true and if they are serious and earnest with regard to their claim that they wish to unite the Muslims, then let them begin with the Aqeedah first, just as the messengers did. لكن هم يسخرون من الذين ومن الذي يتكلم في العقيدة. However, these people, that they belittle and they mock the one who speaks with the Aqeedah. وَيَدْعُوا إِلَى الْعَقِيدَةِ الصَّحِيحَةِ. And they mock the one who calls to the correct Aqeedah and to the sound Aqeedah. وَيَقُولُونَ هَذَا يُكَفِّرُ النَّاسِ. What do they say? يَقُولُونَ, they say about the person who calls to the correct Aqeedah, they say this one, all he's doing is making takfir of the people. He's declaring the people to be kuffar. وَيُرِيدُ أَن يُفَرِّقَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. And all he wants when he calls to the correct Aqeedah is to divide the Muslims. وَيُرِيدُ كَذَا وَكَذَا إِلَى آخِرِ مَا يَقُولُونَ. And he intends and he wishes this and he intends that. He wishes only this and that from to the end of that which they say. So these are the accusations they make against the people who call to the Aqeedah. And you've heard this yourselves, my brothers. That when we say to them, come to the masjid and study Aqeedatul Wasitiyah, or study Lum'atul I'tiqad, or study the Aqeedah of Ibn Abi Dawood, As-Sijistani, or study the books of Usul al-Thalatha, or Kitab al-Tawheed of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, that they say, you people, you're just there to divide the ummah. You just divide the ummah. And you regard other Muslims to be kuffar and mushrikeen. And all you want to do is that you intend this and you intend that. That your da'wah, the da'wah salafiyah, all it does, it divides the Muslims. And then they sit and they mock us. And they do lectures and they give durus mocking the Salafis, accusing them of being Wahhabiyah and other than that. And you've heard it yourselves, my brothers and sisters. For those of you who know what takes place in the durus and the circles of the people of bid'ah. Sheikh al-Fawzan answers them. فَنَقُولْ لَهُمْ. So we say to them, لن تستطيعوا أن تجمعوا المسلمين على غير العقيدة الصحيحة. You will never be able to unite the Muslims upon other than the sound Aqeedah. إذ لو توحدت العقيدة لاجتمعوا بسهولة. If you were able to unite the Aqeedah and make the Aqeedah one, then gathering the Muslims, then you'll be able to do that with ease. As Allah has mentioned, هُوَ الَّذِي أَيَّدَكَ بِنَصْرِهِ وَبِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ. It is Allah who aided you, O Muhammad, with the support of Allah and with the support of the believers. وَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قَلُوبِهِمْ. And Allah brought their hearts together. لَوْ أَنفَقْتَ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. If you, O Muhammad, were to spend the whole of the wealth of the earth, مَا أَلَّفْتَ بَيْنَ قَلُوبِهِمْ. You would never be able to bring their hearts together. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ أَلَّفَ بَيْنَهُمْ. Rather, it is Allah who brought their hearts together. إِنَّهُ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. And Allah, indeed, He is the Almighty and the All-Wise. Surah Al-Anfal, ayah number 62 and 63. And then Allah mentions in another ayah, Surah Ali Imran, ayah 103, وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. And remember the bounties of Allah upon you. إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً. When you were enemies one to another. فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قَلُوبِكُمْ. And then Allah brought your hearts together. فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. And then you became, by the grace of Allah and the bounty of Allah, you became brothers one to another. وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى شَفَا حُفْرَةٍ مِّنَ النَّارِ. And you were upon the edge of the fire of hell. فَأَنْقَذَكُمْ مِنْهَا. And then Allah saved you from it. كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ. And in that manner, Allah makes clear to you His signs, so that you may be of those who are guided. So that you may be guided. And then he mentioned, Sheikh al-Fawzan commenting, فَلَنْ يَجْمَعَ النَّاسِ إِلَّا الْعَقِيدَةُ صَحِيحًا. So nothing will gather the people together except the sound Aqeedah, the correct Aqeedah. التي جاءت بها الرسل من أولهم إلى خاتمهم محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. This Aqeedah that the messengers came with, from the first of them to the seal of them, our messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. And then he mentions the statement of Allah from Surah Al-Anbiya, ayah number 25. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ مِنْ رَسُولٍ إِلَّا نُوحِي إِلَيْهِ. And we did not send before you, O Muhammad, any messenger, except that we inspired him to say, لا إله إلا أنا فاعبدون. That there is nothing worthy of worship except for me, so worship me. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise the statement of Allah from Surah Al-Mu'minun, where Allah mentions in ayah number 52, وَإِنَّ هَذِهِ أُمَّتُكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَأَنَا رَبُّكُمْ فَاتَّقُونَ. That indeed this ummah of yours is one ummah. This nation of yours is one nation, and I'm your Lord, so fear me. وفي الآية الأخرى, and in another ayah, Allah mentions in Surah Al-Anbiya, ayah number 92, إِنَّ هَذِهِ أُمَّتَكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَأَنَا رَبُّكُمْ فَاعْبُدُونَ. That indeed this nation of yours is one nation, and I am your Lord, so worship me. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it clear that the ummah is one. And then Shaykh al-Fawzan, he mentions, لا يتوحدون إلا على إبادة رب واحد. That they were not united except upon the worship of one Rabb, of one Lord. وهو الله سبحانه وتعالى. And He is Allah, the most perfect, the most high, free from all deficiencies. لأنه هو الرب الحق. Because He is the Lord in truth. وغيره باطل. And whatever is besides Him, then all of that is falsehood. And then he mentions the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Hajj, ayah number 62, where Allah mentions ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْحَقِّ. And that is because Allah, He is the truth. From the names of Allah, Al-Haq, that He is the truth. وَأَنَّ مَا يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِهِ هُوَ الْبَاطِلِ. And whatever they call upon besides Him, then that is falsehood. وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْعَلِيُّ الْكَبِيرُ. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the most high and the most great. And then Shaykh al-Fawzan commenting, he mentions, فهذا هو مجال توحيد المسلمين إن كانوا صادقين. And he mentions, and this is the arena, or this is the point of unity of the Muslims, if they are indeed truthful. فَلْيُصَحِّحُ الْعَقِيدَةِ. So upon them is to rectify the Aqeedah and to make it correct. وَيَنْفُ عَنْهَا الزَّيْغ وَالدَّخِيلِ. And to remove and to negate from this Aqeedah any deviations and all alien notions, or all of that which is foreign to the Aqeedah. لِتَكُونَ كَمَا جَاءَ بِهَا مُحَمَّدٌ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم, so that the Aqeedah becomes just as it was, or just as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought it. لِأَجْلِ أَنَّ الْمُسْلِمِينَ يَتَّحِدُونَ عَلَيْهَا, and for the purpose that the Muslims, also that the Muslims, that they themselves may be united around or upon this Aqeedah. And then he mentions هذا هو الذي أراده السلف كالبربهاري وغيره من تأليف هذه الرسائل. And this is what the Salaf intended, such as Imam al-Barbahari and others by the authoring of these works and these treatises. وهذه الكتب في بيان العقيدة الصحيحة, and these books therefore being an explanation and the clarification of the sound and correct belief, i.e. the Aqeedah. لما حدثت الفتن والافتراقات والضلالات كتبوا هذه العقيدة. So when these tribulations and these types of misguidance and this splitting, these iftiraqat, this splitting and these dalalat and these various types of misguidance occurred, then they wrote these books of Aqeedah. يشرحون بها السنة التي كان عليها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وأصحابه والقرون المفضلة. The Aqeedah that the Prophet صلى الله عليه or يشرحون بها, that these books were written in explanation of the Sunnah, in explanation of the Sunnah. نعم التي كان عليها, this Sunnah or this Aqeedah that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم was upon, and what his companions were upon, and the most noble and the most excellent and the most virtuous generations were upon. التي من لزمها نجا. This Sunnah and this Aqeedah, that whomsoever adheres to it and takes and clings to it, then he is saved. ومن هاد عنها هلك, and whomsoever opposes it, then he is destroyed. التي قال فيها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تركتكم على البيداء ليلها كنهارها. He mentions about which the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم stated, نعم, that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم he said, I have left you upon a clear white plain, or upon clear whiteness, meaning upon clear proof. Its night is like its day, meaning that there is no darkness in it. This hadith collected or reported by Imam Ahmad in his Musnad, Ibn Majah in his Sunan, Ibn Abi Asim in his Sunnah, Ibn Abi Asim in his work known as As-Sunnah, wa Abu Nu'aym in his Mustakhraj ala Sahih Muslim, wal Hakim in his Mustadrak ala Sahihain, and other than them. And this hadith is the hadith of Irbad ibn Sariya radiyallahu anhu. And Abu Nu'aym, he said that this hadith is good, is jayyid, from the hadith of the Shamiyin. And Imam and also Al-Hakim said that this hadith, that he authenticated this hadith, and the hadith is authentic and the isnad is hasan, as Al-Mundhiri said, rahimahullah ta'ala. So the hadith, no doubt, is an authentic hadith. And finally, for today, he mentioned Sheikh al-Fawzan, وَيَقُولُ اللَّهُ جَلَّ وَعَلَى. He mentioned that Allah, the Majestic and Most High, said, الْيَوْمَ يَئِسَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ دِينِكُمْ فَلَا تَخْشَوْهُمْ وَخْشَوْنِي. That Allah mentioned this day, those who have disbelieved have given up all hope of defeating your religion, O Muhammad. They have given all hope in your religion, meaning in defeating your religion. So do not fear them. فَلَا تَخْشَوْهُمْ وَخْشَوْنِي. Don't fear them, but fear me, Allah says. الْيَوْمَ أَكْمَلْتُ لَكُمْ دِينَكُمْ وَأَتْمَمْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَتِي وَرَدِيتُ لَكُمُ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا. And Allah mentioned that this day I have perfected for you your religion, and completed for you your religion, and perfected my favor upon you, and I am pleased with Islam as your religion. Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah number 3. هذا هو منات اجتماع الكلمة وتوحيد الكلمة. He mentions, and this is the basis and the point of unity, and the point of unity of the Muslims, meaning that their word is united and they have one word, meaning that their bodies and they are united upon one kalima, meaning that they are united upon one affair. أما أن يقال, as for it being said, نجتمع على ما اتفقنا عليه ويعذر بعضنا بعضا فيما اختلفنا فيه. As for it being said that let us unite upon that which we agree upon, and let us just overlook our differences. فيما اختلفنا فيه, in those affairs that we differ, let's just overlook that and excuse each other in with regard to that. فهذا من المحال إذا كان الاختلاف في العقيدة. He mentions, and this is impossible as it relates to the affairs of Aqeedah, if the differing here is referring to the differing in Aqeedah. أما لو كان الاختلاف في الفقه ومسائل الفقهية المحتملة فهذا ربما يسوغ. So he mentions, as for the affairs of Aqeedah, فهذا, as we mentioned earlier, and I'll repeat that point, that if a person was to say, let us unite upon that which we agree, and let us overlook that upon in those affairs that we differ, let's overlook our differences, and let us focus upon that which we agree. He said this is impossible as it relates to the affairs of Aqeedah and the foundations and the usul of the deen. As he refers to the affairs of fiqh, فَأَمَّا لَوْ كَانَ الْإِخْتِلَافُ فِي الْفِقْهِ وَالْمَسَائِلِ الْفِقْهِيَّةِ الْمُحْتَمِلَةِ فَهَذَا رُبَّمَا يَسُوغ. And as for the affairs in which there is ikhtilaf in fiqh, fiqh here referring to the outward acts of worship, these masail al-fiqhiyya, that these outward acts of worship upon which there is some, that the scholars, that they differ in due to the evidences they have from each side. فَهَذَا رُبَّمَا يَسُوغ. Then in this, perhaps we tolerate, perhaps it is to be tolerated. مَعَ أَنَّ الْوَاجِبَ اتِّبَاءُ الدَّلِيلِ, alongside affirming the fact that it is obligatory to stick to the evidences and to follow the evidences. حتى في المسائل الفقه, even in the affairs of fiqh, that we are obligated to follow the evidences. قال تعالى, just as Allah has stated, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ, that if you differ in any affair between yourselves, فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, then refer it back to Allah and His Messenger. Surah An-Nisa, ayah number 59. And upon that we'll finish. And that, I'm sure, inshallah, is absolutely clear to everyone sitting here today, that we do not tolerate differing in usul. Differing is only tolerated in the affairs of ijtihad, in which the scholars of old, that they differed in, based upon the evidences from either side. As for the usul, as for the aqeedah, we do not differ. We do not differ. So whatever argument that they bring, whether it be the argument of the throne and the qalam, whether it be the argument of whether the Prophet ﷺ saw the face of Allah or did not see the face of Allah, the Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, these arguments are what is known as red herrings. These are red herrings that are thrown, meaning that these are tricks that they use to deceive the Muslims into thinking that Ahlus Sunnah, they differ in the Aqeedah. Ahlus Sunnah do not differ in the qalam. Is there anyone that you know, ya ikhwan, from Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah that denies that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the qalam and commanded the qalam to write? Anyone know of any differing amongst Ahlus Sunnah in this? No differing. Does anyone sitting here today know of any differing between Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the throne? That the throne is an entity from the greatest of the creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is any differing, ya ikhwan, amongst Ahlus Sunnah in that regard? Yes, no, don't know? No differing. In the kursi, is there any differing between Ahlus Sunnah, that the kursi is a creation of Allah? No differing, ya ikhwan. So when those people of bid'ah and those people of misguidance from Ikhwan al-Muflisin and the Qutbiyin and the Hizbiyin, and they say to us this statement, نجتمع على ما اتفقنا عليه ويعذر بعضنا بعضا فيما اختلفنا فيه, that they say, let us unite upon that which we agree upon, and let us overlook each other's differences with regard to those affairs that we differ upon. Then we say to them, this Qaaidah first and foremost is the Qaaidah of Hassan al-Banna, the founder of Ikhwan al-Muslimin. He used this Qaaidah and this principle to unite the various sects that are divided in their Aqeedah. So the source of this principle is an innovator, this Hassan al-Banna, the founder of Ikhwan al-Muslimin. Secondly, that this Qaaidah is used by Ikhwan al-Muslimin, the Qutubiyin, the people of Bid'ah, the people who follow the ideas of Ikhwan al-Muslimin, to claim that it is permissible even to unite with the people who oppose the Aqeedah of the Sahaba. Something that the Sahaba were united upon, they believe that we can differ upon. This principle, ya Ikhwan, cannot be used in that regard. As for saying that there might be differences that the ulama of the Salaf had in the mode and the method that they prayed in. Like for example, do we put our hands on the chest after the ruku' or not? Do we move our finger in the tashahhud or not? Do we point it throughout the whole of the tashahhud or only during the dua, in the various places of the dua that we make in the tashahhud? This is something that the scholars differ upon based upon evidences. Do we go down on the knees first when we make sajda, or do we go down on the hands first? Something that the ulama of the Salaf and of later times have differed upon. These are aspects of differing that Ahlus Sunnah differed upon. No doubt. As for now in the Aqeedah, then the Sahaba never differed, the Tabi'een never differed, the earlier generations never differed, and we do not differ. As for claiming that the Sahaba and the early generations differed over the Qalam and the Arsh, then this is the qawl which is batil. The Sahaba and the Salaf never differed over the Qalam and Arsh. The differing was which one was created first. This is not a differing in the existence of both of them, because Ahlus Sunnah affirm the existence of both. What they differ in is which came first. This is not a difference in Aqeedah, this is a difference in awwaliyah. Which one came first and which one came after. So this is something, my brothers and sisters, that Ahlus Sunnah, we affirm. That this is not differing in Aqeedah. In the asl of the Aqeedah, we affirm it. What we differ upon is what came first. It's not a differing, ya Ikhwan. So therefore, do not be deceived by those people who say that the Sahaba, they differed. Or that the Salaf, they differed in the Aqeedah. They did not differ in the Aqeedah. And we don't care who claims that the Sahaba, they differed. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala in Minhaj sunnah mentions the ijma' that the Salaf and the Sahaba, they agreed and were united upon the Aqeedah. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah quotes the ijma' upon this issue, that they were never divided. So who is anyone to come along now and claim that the Sahaba were divided and separated upon the Aqeedah? They were united, walillahi alhamd, and they died upon unity upon the Aqeedah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Tomorrow, inshallah, is moving on to the Aqeedah of Ibn Abi Dawud al-Sijistani, the lines of poetry al-Ha'iyya, and that will be 6:30 tomorrow, an hour earlier, and that is straight after Salatul Isha, inshallah. So barakallahu feekum, that's tomorrow. And we'll continue.